Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. Just quick update of current situations. We are pushing here to keep them from actually occupying this province. And we've won here, and we're going to push in there. We are holding here very well, considering the amount of opponents, though we are sending forces once they defeat here, which again, they're holding reasonably well considering the amount of forces. I'm thinking we may do that. Let's start moving that way. These guys, they can come down here to hold the province, so we're doing well there. Here we're doing well. That is going to happen. Here we're going to win that eventually here soon. These guys are moving into an unoccupied province. At least currently, it looks like there's a retreating unit there, maybe coming around here, and so we may get a nice small pocket there. Yeah, it's looking good. Far from, you know, winning this thing, but we're looking good. Okay, yep. Good, we got some more supplies being sold to the US. Okay, we've won there. I'm attacking here mostly as a pinning sort of device to pin these units down. But they may just win anyways. Which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. For trapping them in the pocket at least. It would be nice to get rid of these guys via, you know, the pocket, not letting them escape into Red China. Okay, these two guys are now together. And let's give them a HQ. I think the HQs happened maybe later than the original OOBs created, but I'm not sure on that. That's why these, you know, don't have it, or whether they're just meant to be set. But these have artillery and anti-aircraft, even though they're militia. Okay, good. So they've won that there now. Let's make sure they get supplies as fast as possible, because then we can start attacking with them. Oh, good. Okay, tactical air command. Okay, good. I'm gonna just reducing ground attack penalties, which I think is a good thing for my forces. Okay, hardly any supplies, but okay, we're gonna attack with these militia guys here to join this fight, mostly so that we don't get the delay in between. Oh, good. It looks like they're coming out there. Now I am moving the railway gun, here it is, to here to see if it's going to help in any of this. I don't know, because if you look at the stats for this thing, where is it again? Over here. See, its soft attack is 1, hard attack is 0. You know, has 0 suppression. Air attack, it has some, it's considered to have some anti-aircraft guns. Figuring either the railway guns or the other, you know, big guns, they had moved them with at least some anti-aircraft around them as time comes along. But what you have here is, for fort attacks and urban attacks, probably this would have been good. Well, not probably. It would have been very good, and I should have done it. I didn't think it was going to take so long. Just didn't do the job that I should have. Should have come here for this urban attack, and or this urban attack here that they're still repairing from. Don't know why they're taking so long, but yeah. Don't know why they haven't gotten anything repaired, and this one is all fully repaired already. That was part of the reason why it took so long to get stuff moved out of there. But yeah, so urban attack it's quite useful. And it's okay for defense there, amphibious attack, obviously. So if you had a fortification, it's where, you know, it's worse than, you know, best not to have it. But so what I'm looking at here, let's go to the either Shanghai or some of these fortified places, or Nanjing, instead of having, you know, a long dragged out battle. Do we have a bunch of other, okay, military police to conscripts? Okay, that's just sort of what I thought we had there. So I'm gonna have that in theater and see if we can use it successfully or usefully, whatever. Like, it would do no use to have it, you know, attacking across this river, but it would be there. I think they'll make it in time to join that before they collapse, even though they're being hit from more than one direction. Oh, and good, that is working out well. Okay, they can attack now, so let's join this fight. Oh, good. Okay, they made it to here. Yeah, let's attack there. Let's support the attack. We're going to have these guys there short, or the ones that are moving forward shortly, to make sure to deal with any counterattacks. And now they're facing a bit of a fight, so well, don't really want to move the Marines inland because I want them ready to do more invasions. But these guys here, since these are motorized, let's sort of plan follow along movements. Okay, good. We haven't brought another corps over. These guys are all filled up. Okay. Well, you know, let's just do this. And that looks like a good commander. Don't know him. Don't know most. These guys really aren't that well organized, are they? They really should have. That would have really been helpful. Okay. Yeah. Helped on supply usage. So there we go. And yes, it's my fault for not I detached these guys from their too far away HQs back in Tokyo, and with the intention of coming here. Okay. Well, let's give him a leader. Let's see if we can find a fortress buster like him, maybe, or urban assault specialist, because we're going to do a little more urban assault than fortress buster, but maybe there's the Holy Grail and have an urban assault fortress buster. That looks like an interesting guy. Swamp Fox, Mountaineer, and Ranger. That would be a good combo. Jungle and Naval. That would be a very good one. Desert Fox and Fortress Buster. Some good combos. Another Urban Assault Specialist. Winter Fortress. I think because they're probably not going to be in overall command, but they would be in command of this. I think better to have a lower skilled guy in an actual divisional thing to get both together. Oh, and I was asked to see about what skills may have been learned up in well, Beijing group is somewhat dissipated around, but we can still check what traits were learned in the Beijing and the Shaanxi long fights. Yeah, I'm looking for the perfect guy if we have him here. And in a way, it's actually maybe better that you have a less good guy, so that because you're only going to use this division rarely. And like I say, you very likely can have other people in overall command, but this guy would help this division to maximize its traits. And of course, the other thing to do is temporarily at least add the railway gun to, and it's probably the best thing to do actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But or add other, maybe the better thing to do is actually once you get near a problematic situation, transfer over most of another division over to this, transfer back the defense, because each division sort of fights on its own, and so those railway guns are best added to another division. So yeah, but having the guy here, because I'm thinking that maybe the actual, if I'm attaching this to another division, but I can swap division commanders around without messing up organization levels by having this division here take over being the main division by transferring the units here, while most of the other units over to this division, while transferring the garrison support element there to the other division, whether they right. So I'm still looking for somebody who has both. Nope, no boths. Okay. Urban assault, maybe. Yeah, desert, because we're not probably going to use it somewhere else. So he's going to become my urban assault specialist. And like I say, these are a bunch of division guys you can see here. Engineer, don't know which. Some of these have logistic wizards probably is earned, maybe, I don't know. In the China fight, or I mean the Peking fight, you can see though some of the partially earned ones. Better determined up here because these are still sort of grouped together. Hill Fighter, it looks like that's been a major trait. Yeah, Hill Fighter, Trickster, maybe. Especially the ones after Old Guard. Yeah, Hill Fighter, Trickster, Engineer. Those look like the ones they earned. And battling up here, getting hot. the capital there of Shaanxi or whatever. And so, how long is it going to take to get there? April 1938. Or March 13th. That's much sooner, including with the, and I don't know when we use them, because we're, like I say, it's not going to be useful for going here, but it might be useful for there. Okay, industry advance. Okay, so we are maxed out on that, and tactical air command. Okay. Oh, I think I saw, yes. Need to do Bank of International Settlement. Yes, the 4,000 supplies. If you think you can, you always do that. That is the best. IC, 4% IC, sure. Money and 3% leadership. I think we're down a little bit in leadership than from what we were because of not having that currently active. Okay, now I sort of kind of think they're not going to get more reinforcements up here. So you guys, now that they're retreating, you just advance. Push deeper in, faster, now, go, go, go. Okay, submarine hulls have advanced. Very good. That's important technology, and that's grayed out, and we have more. So we're going to come back up here. We have industry. Okay, just wanted to check there. Well, since we're in 38, we should be doing all of these. Oil refining, we want to do coal to oil conversion. Oh, that's 41, sorry. We don't want to do that just yet. We've pushed as far forward as we can. Well, we can push more, but it's just not useful. I think next would be steel of importance. And well, we have some more, so we'll do that. We're going to do all of that. Looking to see if any of these are needed more for getting improvements. Combat medicine, that would be helpful. And we have a little more than half of a leadership element left. Yeah, let's push ahead on basic. That would be helpful. And recon unit. Communications. Okay. Well, they're all at 38, and so we're going to keep going with that. Everybody who's any good around on the front line is using recon, so. Okay, and it looks like they are going to go into there fairly quickly. So, you move to support there. Because Nanjing is a major focus, I am sort of thinking of pushing down, but let's push you that way. Okay, you guys here can now move to the front. You're not in great shape, but uh-oh, we've lost that, but which is a bit of a problem here if they successfully, which they may be doing, they're able to escape. Okay, that we've won here, so let's get these guys here. Yeah, I know they will be. Well, you're going, and okay, no, we need to have you come into here and push to there. We're going to let the guys already moving go that way, but you and you come to there. Unfortunately, these guys may escape a little too easily. But now that we've won that here, we got these guys coming down. They're holding well enough on their own at the moment. You guys attack. Oh, damn, 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 damn. Oh, damn. Okay, well, they're still attacking there. We're going to block that off soon. Really meant to get these guys. And these, yeah. Start pushing south here. Okay, good. Well, we've got that bit. You don't need to go there anymore. You come down here. Single engine fighter prototype has advanced. Very good. What I really love about because obviously, if, as you realize, if you go through these steps, everybody's going to have the same damn aircraft. Everybody's going to have the same damn aircraft. What I really love that you can do, and we see Black Ice do, is like model the Zero. You know, it's super long range, super maneuverable, fast, but it's not well armored. And so I don't now. The question is, and I don't know how well the engine models air battles, you know, and all of that. That is because that is something I am not going to, one, mod, and two, I'm not going to really have much of an effect over, and not the best judge. I just don't pay attention to that, quite honestly. Why? Well, because like I have no effect over it. But either as a modder or a player, I can have aircraft that meet the specification types of like a Zero, super long range fighter for a single engine fighter, you know, and have all of that stuff. And then if they've done a good job with the engine on air battle, it'll be great. Okay, let's get 1938's aero engines in development, and we've won this battle here. Where is, okay, here, good. They're defending while we got other guys pushing in, and we also now have to adjust production. I've moved these, or at least some of these, down here, not completely ended them. Still doing 2 convoys here, but that is a lot. These are not yet in production, this division here, but will be soon. But it gets our military police, and as we can see here, because we currently own this isn't actually as revolty as it was. So well now, because that's actually the case, let's move you there. But we have things like here, So, yeah. Yeah. And we'll be needing, as we push in and around, as you can see even here, we'll be needing our police for some time to come to guard all of our resources. Oh, they're trying a counterattack, not working out. Okay, we'll wait just a bit to get a few more. Yes, when will they be able to? 18 hours. I think we have enough stuff coming. No, we got all these guys here once they can counterattack. Well, no, we'll stop that. We got a lot of these guys that we're gonna have them break out, hopefully. Effectively. Okay, yeah, support that attack. I didn't want you moving forward to get units cut off, and now you come up to hopefully get with these guys, I think. Yeah, get in on the attack. Okay, you support that attack there, and you attack into there. You support that. Again, I want to get you back to the coast. Oh, didn't need to, the Marines did it quickly, didn't they? Once they get here, then we can attack from here from another side as well, and get these guys across the river who have been attacking for like ever. Okay, yeah, support these guys. And like I said, these guys are here. So, let's send you here. You here. You fast down into here. You into there. Yeah, you can join that attack. Okay, so now these guys get to attack. Yeah, they got engineers across this river. You move in there speedily, and you attack across the river. Tibet. Yeah, we want to like Tibet, so yes, Tibet. Okay, production of supplies is significantly larger than needs, so we're fine. Don't know why that is. that way. Okay, well, Of course I want more infantry divisions. That just sort of almost goes without saying. And I want more other types of divisions. Like I'm sort of looking here, I need to look a little long run for my Pacific War and not just be complacent. CV is 15 ICs for 460 days. A battleship is 21 ICs for 572 days. And then plus, of course, you've got to add in the fighters for the CV. But yeah, let's go with one more battleship. And a carrier. I sort of am. I like. Okay, there are 3 basic types, at least, for the U.S. Navy at this sort of, well, World War II time period, a little bit later. There's CVs, carriers. They vary in size, they vary in capacity of what they can hold, you know, a number of different types of aircraft. But they're sort of the big main stuff. CVLs are light carriers. They are as fast, maybe faster. For the U.S., they built a lot of them on heavy cruiser hulls that had been started as heavy cruisers, and they partway through production they converted them to light carriers. I think they also maybe just started some hulls based on the same basic heavy cruiser hulls. No, light cruiser hulls. Sorry, light cruisers. They weren't on heavy cruisers. They were on light cruiser hulls. Started them on light cruiser hulls. Anyways, you know, meaning use the same dimensions instead of purpose building them CVLs. And so they're as fast as the CVs and can move around, and so you can either send off a CVL, I don't know, to support a naval landing that has, you know, pre-war dreadnought, coastal battleships in this sort of term, you know, old battleships, or not pre-dreadnought, but like the type of battleships that were sunk at Pearl Harbor, the old stuff. Because I think it was only 2 of the battleships at Pearl Harbor were not reused or fixed and used in the war. The Arizona, which is still there, and I forget the other one, which was just easier, and it was sort of in a bad position to be able to use other slips, because they sometimes will park, and it did for quite some time. And I think now there's the Missouri or something that's parked next to the Arizona as a museum ship. But during the war and whatever, they still used Battleship Row as a useful part of parking battleships and carriers and other things there during World War II. But there was the other one, I forget its name, was broken up into 2 pieces, and it was where it sort of ended up being kept that area from being used. So they actually went in and salvaged and scrapped it. It was just too bad to even consider using, so they scrapped that one. The other, there was, I think, 1 or 2. I know I just read this stuff, but I don't keep those facts in my head well. 1 or 2 that were raised and fairly quickly, and basically in Pearl Harbor there, made ready for use. They weren't as good as the ones that were damaged more, that were damaged, raised up, patched up just enough, and I think mostly towed back to the U.S. for proper rebuilding. And it was just the combination of, steel, which costs money and can be scarce, during war, need things like building the main guns, in a foundry. You don't have to redo that. And so it may take not as long as it takes to build a fresh ship, but it still may take a long time to repair it. But the amount of resources and the amount of personnel is just a fraction, maybe half, maybe 10%, I don't know, and it probably depends on at what stage they're working on things, that it does to build a fresh ship. So it was very worth getting the old battleships reconditioned to work again. But by the time but the ones they sent back to the mainland, I think most of the work was done on the Pacific coast. Once they were got back, they were in better shape because they had better gunnery computers, maybe radar and other stuff that was added that was never added, or at least not, I don't know that was added, and also more anti-aircraft, I think, added than the ones that were sort of got back into use fairly quickly after Pearl Harbor. Battleships, but again, only 2 of them were permanently out of the war. But all of those ships, by the time really was sort of going on, they were no longer useful for the American Navy because they couldn't, as a mainline battleship, not they were still useful, but as a mainline battleship because the carriers could move so much faster. And they built fast battleships. The Missouri class was a fast battleship class specifically to keep up with the carriers. And so these other ships, like they say, they're no longer going to, go toe-to-toe with the Musashi or the not Musashi, but the other one, I forget, the other super battleship of Japan. They just don't have the gunnery range, even whether they had the gunnery power to penetrate its best armor, probably not. So there's a lot of reason that they wouldn't be functional, as even if you were going to have a line of battleship battles. I mean, they would probably come into the end of the line just to sort of be there, but they don't have a lot of the range. So they're not so much useful for that anymore, but they're again useful for shore bombardment. In an island campaign, that's very useful. They are still useful that if, say, light cruisers or even heavy cruisers somehow and there were naval battles in which light and heavy cruisers and even a few battleships did fire at each other. The carrier was becoming dominant, most assuredly, but there were still some of those down fairly south in the ocean. So if you were to have, one of those things, they're vulnerable, and everybody knew it even before the war, to torpedoes, launched by destroyers or motor torpedo boats or torpedo boats, those things, and some light cruisers have torpedoes. They're vulnerable to that. But they still have big guns that if you can get within range and they can hit you, they're going to do a lot of damage. So they're still useful in that support role, but they're no longer the prime ships. And of course, more and more battleships our battleships become, by the end of the war, purely a support vessel. Purely a support vessel. Halsey makes his, in my opinion, big mistake when he's supposed to be somewhere, I don't know, down here or somewhere, protecting a strait. He decides to protect it by going north and looking for the enemy, and then the enemy comes through the strait, and the carriers that are vulnerable have to run away, and it is an absolute miracle, and I do mean miracle, how they don't, and I remember hearing about this years ago, how they don't get attacked. The Japanese don't press home the attack. They are the carrier, and I think were mostly the CVEs, and we'll get to those in a minute, but had limited guns on them, and there were some, light cruisers or destroyers with guns that were shooting at as long a range as they could at these Japanese surface ships, and they were sending off aircraft as fast as they could, because they had been supporting land operations to attack the Japanese surface ships. And had the Japanese surface ships just kept up the speed and pushed on them, they would have gotten the American ships and just slaughtered them badly, because the American ships had no real defenses to them, but it just sort of bluff that kept them, and sort of the Japanese were sort of, well, where's Halsey? And Halsey, who had had his flag in the main sort of battleship group, was looking for a big surface action, and was out hunting the Japanese main fleet, and bad mistake. And so he wanted to have, and this is sort of his big moment, and I'm going to read his biography, but his sort of big frustration moment, because Pearl Harbor's hearing about this and hearing about some of this, and finally sends a message to him, and there's an add-on to the message that is just supposed to be filler, but it really sort of causes problems. So he spends an hour more trying to chase the Japanese fleet, and then turns around and starts heading back, and misses the other fleet that turns around and escapes back out. But he wanted to have in his career the one sort of, because he was, a battleship type captain, big battleship on battleship, or battleship to carriers and guns and sinking ships and all this stuff, like, Juntland or Juntland, whatever you want to call it, battle in World War I or whatever. He wanted to have that big battle. That was what he was itching for, and not doing his job of protecting the carriers and other support vessels for which, and I forget what strait, and whether it was landing down here or landing up here. I think it was more landing down here, but and so he wants to have this battle. But these big ships are now really purely support vessels. They are to do fire support on shore bombardment. They are to anti-aircraft support, because you can put a lot of anti-aircraft guns around on a big battleship around carriers, and because of all their armor, and then you slam in a few kamikazes on them, they just sort of shrug them off. Oh, sure, the kamikaze, where it hits, and it's going to take out a few anti-aircraft batteries and kill a bunch of sailors. I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to do damage to it, and but just their armor belts on them, and it sort of armors all of the critical areas on the ships, the engines, the main, and some of them have some of the not just the big gun turrets, but there's normally, at least on some of the vessels, sort of a round cylinder of armor going down towards the magazine of the vessel to protect it. I mean, they have armored hatchways that they can open and close, so there's weak points. But so you could slam in, and it could be like a big fireball, a bunch of people die, and a big hole sort of inside of the ship. But none of the things that make the ship important to fight are really damaged. I mean, a few anti-aircraft guns are down, which makes things a little more vulnerable, but they're not sunk, so that these things around carriers can really help them. And then, yes, because we did see Abdafloat get sunk in right around, I think, in this area, maybe it's more over here, but I think it's here, early in the that sort of Abdafloat was sort of Australian, British, American, Dutch, whatever sort of cruiser and destroyer fleet that was down here that gets sunk purely by there was air attacks, but they were land-based air attacks, but it was mostly sunk by German or Japanese surface units. And there were other, especially around here, a lot of surface-to-surface engagements, including some fairly large ships, but no big battleship on battleship kind of engagement. But so, yeah, if you're in limited waters, and because even the best raiders at the time are going to have gaps, and because I think it was Guadalcanal was in the, or just barely, and so they readjusted the lines to make it firmly within we've talked about that Nimitz is in command of the Pacific Theater, and it sort of kind of runs through here as a command zone. And MacArthur, who has his headquarters in Brisbane, Brisbane, sorry, I'm not terribly great with that, has his headquarters here, is sort of running somewhere here along here to the Philippines, his sort of, command zone here. And so his army-based reconnaissance planes, I think flying out of New Guinea, were supposed to keep watch over here, and for some reason they don't fly one day, whether it's bad weather. I mean, there may be like a very good reason they don't fly, but for some reason they don't fly that they're supposed to fly. But they don't fly to do reconnaissance. They or it could be the they were just in need of repair. I mean, it wasn't necessarily just that MacArthur wasn't, or his air commanders at one level or something, wasn't cooperating with the Navy. And I think it may have even been a naval, I think it was Air Force, but may have been Naval Command, but under MacArthur, theater of operations, didn't fly the reconnaissance that he was supposed to and scheduled. Again, like I say, there very well may be very, very good reasons why they didn't do that, but they never got through to, in the morning or whenever they knew that they weren't going to fly the reconnaissance, they never let the Pacific Theater Command know that they didn't. So the Japanese were, sent a force down somewhere through here that would have been spotted had they been flying the reconnaissance. These guys, the Navy that was being supplied out through here, didn't know that it didn't fly, so it got surprised by the Japanese, and some ships were lost, and that kind of thing. So some bad things happened, and so the real bad failure was a lack of communication. And somebody, don't know who, I think somewhat up the chain knew here, but they didn't report it to the other theater of command. And these are high-level theaters of command that are supposed to cooperate, but aren't as set up as, a joint theater. And so the fleet gets by. So sometimes you can just have bad weather, you can have radar that doesn't work, or whatever, that, ships can get by, and you can have your carriers here that can't run because of whatever geography is, where they, could run because they're fast. They, once you sort of know that the battleships are there, they're as fast as battleships. You just get going. You can't be caught, kind of thing. Well, if you're slower and have invasion transport craft of various types, you're slow, you can be outrun. And two, geography, and some of these straits are actually not, well, some of these down here I know that some of the U.S. units or British units that were trying to get out, some of the cruisers could not make it through. They didn't either have charge, or these just weren't deep enough to get through at the time, and the Japanese had the sort of the better ones blocked up. And so they, had some real problems. So sometimes you just have geography that you can't get away. And so then, yes, if you're pressed into it, you may end up with a surface-on-surface action where they're useful. So that battleships, and I still believe this to this day, battleships are useful, and the U.S. should build, just because it's a big Navy, because it's a minimum 2 ocean Navy, Pacific and Atlantic. And then if you want to throw in the Indian Ocean, and the idea that, you got 4 ships. Yes. Well, let's say if you have 3 ships of any basic type, carriers, battleships, in the U.S. Navy. The way currently at peace, obviously war changes things, but at peace, you have 1 ship operating. You have 1 ship that is back from operating, and the crew is basically told, go on vacation, because you didn't get you don't have weekends off. You can't go home to your family. You're out at sea. Yeah, sometimes you're stationed at Hawaii or wherever. But even then, your family may be back in, Arizona or whatever. So you get your time off, and they go through. They have other, crews, but not sailor crews, but crews that go in and recondition the ship. So while that 1/3 is off on vacation, and then you have the third vessel is the crew coming back together. So you have new people on the vessel. You'll have old people who've retired or got posted, transferred to other vessels. Whatever else. So you have a change of crew from last time. You may have the same captain, you may have the same XO, but one or more of them could have been promoted up into something new very often. So you'll have something of the same crew as before, but it'll be new. And they've spent, say, 3 months on vacation, away from doing their job. So they're practicing doing their job. They're getting trained up, getting ready to go out. So this is sort of the usual thing with like ballistic missile subs, with carriers and whatever. This is the ideal. It doesn't always happen, but the ideal is, so if you have 3 subs, one's doing its job, one's practicing to do its job, the third is on vacation, and the vacation is both, for the ship to be reconditioned and go over to make sure it's in top-notch shape for both the working up period and then its deployment period. So you have this rotation. Now, of course, in a war it's different, but in a war you need them going. So the reason I say a minimum of 4 battleships is so you can have at least that some sort of rotation, but have have 2 sort of kind of stationed on the Pacific coast and 2 on the Atlantic coast of the US. So, home ported, so that if you sort of know that you're going to be assigned to this vessel for likely 3 years or something, you can have your immediate family move nearish by you, where you are, to come back. So, and the U.S. should really have that, and because you do also deploy into the Mediterranean, you do deploy into the Indian Ocean. So that's why I would say a minimum of 4. And these would just be, and I know I've talked about this before, but since I'm here, I'm talking about it again. You can armor up a carrier, but by the nature of a carrier, a lot of it is exposed. And we now know, both for making it more stealthy and also making a thing more better armored, you want to, angle the armor and slant it up. And so you're never going to be able to do that on a carrier effectively. Think to the point you'd have to have a carrier in which the landing and takeoff deck is actually under the armor, and sort of like a spaceship, and they open up, front and back doors, and you sort of fly into it and then close it. I mean, you'd have to have that, some sort of kind of thing, to have an armor, anything like a battleship. So, they talked about, some of the people have talked about, well, instead of, like I was wanting to replace, 16, 15, 17 or 18 inch type, guns, having those kind of things. They're suggesting rail guns of the future. Well, maybe rail guns, but some big guns shooting very fast, high velocity, big rounds that are very hard to physically intercept. And one of the reasons energy beams, whether they're technically lasers or not, but energy beam weapons can bring down missiles, is because most of those missile bodies are fairly thin. So if you can heat them, punch up enough and into the fuel, into the, explosive warhead, you can give critical problems, and they, blow up in the sky, come tumbling out of the sky and land, hopefully, in the ocean, in the desert, where it's not going to hurt anybody, as opposed to its intended target. So you can maybe bring down, as well as missiles. Generally speaking, there's some faster and faster missiles, fly a bit slower than ballistic items, but they're, again, sort of lighter body, that if you're hitting it with another missile, you're more likely to bring it down. And if you're firing a bank of, say, 9 missiles, all, 16-inch guns, the big 16-inch rounds, 9 all at once, you've got to have minimum 9 interception missiles all succeed to bring down that volley. And generally speaking, the projectiles from a 16-inch gun are cheaper than a high-tech missile that is being launched, well, maybe from an aircraft or whatever. So they still have, in my opinion, very good reason to have battleships, and so that if you launch in Exocet missiles, or whatever the Chinese Taipodong 2s or whatever they're called, I don't know. I know that's a missile. I don't know if that's an anti-ship missile. But, whatever missiles they're shooting at your carrier task force group, they may be hitting that battleship, and they may be knocking out the anti-aircraft positions. Whether, obviously there won't be the old guys standing outside hand loading a 40 millimeter gun clips. They will be other sorts of anti-aircraft guns and or anti-aircraft missiles, and that, so they could be doing damage to it, but it'll be really hard to actually sink. Not impossible, but be really hard to sink. And so we really, somebody like America, big America, can afford them, can be done, and if you build them right, you can build them for 100-year life. That you'll every 20 years or whatever, you'll strip out all the electronics and replace it with new, and you'll do upgrades during its life, but you build the whole thing to have a 100-year life. So that you build them once and they're expensive, and then if you think peace is breaking out or you're just having massive budgetary problems, okay, you lay them up in harbor, you send the crews home, and you protect them, you do the proper mothballing so they're not rotting, and they may take 3 months, 6 months, to get properly reactivated even before you put the first crew member, active crew members on them. But still, that's 6 months maybe instead of 2 to 3 years to build from scratch, in a oops, we're at war again situation. So having some of those guys would be useful, but again, they are primarily a support weapon to the carrier, and I am not. See, you may think, oh, I'm a battleship advocate. Well, yeah, as a support weapon, not as a primary weapon. And on that note, we're going to end this episode. I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you for liking the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Love to see you around more often. And, of course, please post questions, comments, suggestions, corrections on any part of this. Love hearing from you. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.